Silliest reason that you got punished for? In grade 5, winter in Canada was a constant battle between frostbite and recess boredom. The playground was a sea of colorful jackets, mittens, and snow boots, and every class had to go outside for lunch break, no matter how cold it was. Our teachers were sticklers about the rules, lining up properly, walking in straight lines, and standing quietly when the bell rang to go back inside. Sometimes that meant waiting for what felt like forever, shivering in place while the line monitors made sure everyone stayed in formation. Naturally, impatience grew like frost on the playground windows, especially with a group of 5 or 6 kids like me and my friends who had more energy than sense. That particular day, one of us came up with an idea that we thought was revolutionary. Jackets were mandatory, but what if we wore them backwards? Not in a fashion sense, but literally zipped up on the back. It was instantly hilarious. The zippers dug into our backs in awkward ways. Our pockets were useless, and the hoods flopped oddly, but it felt like a rebellious act of genius. We strutted around the playground, feeling like pioneers of absurd style, and laughing so hard that our noses ran and our cheeks stung from the cold. For 5 minutes, we were untouchable, masters of our small winter kingdom, until a teacher noticed. She was one of those teachers whose voice could turn a snowstorm into a mental fog. She froze for a moment, then began screaming at us like we had set the entire school on fire. Her words came out in a mixture of panic and incredulity. "If your jackets caught fire like this, you wouldn't have enough time to remove them and you could burn alive." We froze mid-laugh. Burn, fire, jackets. None of it made any sense. The other teachers nearby tried not to stare too long, shuffling papers and pretending to busy themselves. They whispered among themselves, clearly thinking she had lost it, but no one dared to contradict her. It was a rule now, apparently, that jackets could not be worn backwards, even in sub-zero temperatures with no actual source of fire in sight. The playground descended into chaos as she barked orders. We were marched to the front of the class line, still giggling under our breaths because the absurdity of it all was impossible to ignore. Our punishment was immediate and creative. 100 lines, each reading, "I will not wear my jacket the other way around anymore." The teachers handed out lined paper, and we sat cross-legged in the corner, pencils clutched like weapons, writing the same sentence over and over until our hands cramped and our wrists ached. Every time someone made a mistake, they had to start again. The cold from the playground had barely faded, replaced now by the slow burn of enforced repetition. By the time the hour was up, the teacher had walked away, satisfied that she had instilled discipline and safety awareness into a group of children who were mostly just cold, tired, and amused. The irony wasn't lost on us, of course. The odds of a jacket spontaneously igniting were infinitesimal compared to slipping on the ice outside or getting frostbite waiting in line. But there we were, victims of one person's overzealous imagination. We tried to stifle our laughter while writing the lines. One friend whispered, "Imagine if we set them on fire, on purpose." That got a few stifled snorts, and we had to put our heads down to avoid being caught. The repetitive motion, combined with the absurdity of the reason behind it, made the punishment almost comical in hindsight. By the time we had completed the 100 lines, the sentences themselves became a parody. The words "jacket the other way around" repeated over and over like a chant, a bizarre record of a moment where logic had completely left the building. Years later, I still remember the cold air on my cheeks, the sharp pencil in my hand, and the collective groans of my friends as we endured the punishment. It was the kind of memory that sticks, not because of pain or shame, but because of how utterly ridiculous the situation was. Backwards jackets, a teacher terrified of imaginary fires, and 100 lines to teach a lesson that made no sense. It was a perfect storm of childhood absurdity. By the end of the day, the jackets were back to normal, our hands sore, and our laughter subdued, but simmering under the surface. Even then, we couldn't help but glance at each other and smirk, knowing that somehow, somewhere, we had managed to turn a simple winter jacket into a moment of shared hilarity and absurdity that none of us would ever forget.